All right. My name is Michael Woolsey. I'm captain of the Dyna Robotics team, the Green Machine.
I'm Alex Neal. I'm the co-captain of the Dyna Robotics Green Machine.
And today we're going to be presenting sponsorship and fundraising. It's going to be a big part of every team this year. I mean, the budgets that some of these teams have can be up in the tens of thousands of dollars. So raising money is definitely a key component to being a first team. And we're just going to walk you through some steps about how to really make it easy on yourself and prepare it for the year. That change? It's down arrow. Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay, so basically anyone can find a sponsorship team or a sponsorship. So you can look anywhere. It doesn't have to be tech related. You can look, at a local grocery store like Jerry Foods, which is a local chain here in Edina. And you can also look towards tech companies like Ventronic or Stratasys. Those are other local companies. And it doesn't, you don't have to look for companies which pertain to robotics. I mean, most major employers are fair game. You can go ahead and go get them. And you're going to want to start early because all this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you want to start early and make sure you have your sponsorship stuff.
Yeah, and then just adding to that, most teams that are really good and really successful with this, I mean, it's one of the first things that they do once the season is over. The new season starts basically in the summer with you raising the funds for next year. The cutoff to actually register an official sponsor with First is always kind of in the middle of December. So it's something that you can feel free to start as early as possible and really help yourself throughout the season. All right, so after you've identified who you're going to go after as a sponsor, the next logical step would be to prepare your materials. Most teams make a sponsorship folder. I mean, that could be an actual folder. It can be a bunch of files on a jump drive if you want to bring it in for a presentation. Just make sure that you get all of your material in a nice, neat little package. What should be in there is the team information, like your name on the robot, your high school, things like that, things that will set you apart from other teams as well. You're also going to want to talk about the benefits that sponsoring your team is going to provide. You're selling your team to them. I mean, they're going to pay you money, and they don't want to just give you money and then have you run around with it. I mean, make sure that you are definitely thanking your sponsorships, and we're gonna talk about that a little later as well. Also, you should work on a formal letter requesting sponsorship. Should be pretty concise, maybe about a page, nothing really detailed, but enough to explain your team to someone who doesn't know First, maybe explain First a little bit, and then also have a nicely phrased asking for sponsorship. And when you're doing that, keep in mind that you won't get what you don't ask for. A lot of the times you're going to be bartering a little bit, like you may ask for something and a company's going to lower it down, but it's very unlikely that if you ask for a little bit of money, they're going to give you a lot. We included here an example of one of our flyers that we had a few years ago. You can just see, put some images there so it's not just black ink on white paper. It's a little more exciting that way. We also put the contact information. That's a very big deal. We actually did forget that one year, and I believe we had people contacting us through our website after they eventually found us that way. You want to make it as easy as it can be for these sponsors. We also put down here at the bottom, there's more contact information. We put a link to our websites, our email address, things like that, so they can really get to know us without just looking at this piece of paper. Quick summary, we also have the unique element from that year. We really had a campaign that we were going green. We are the Green Machine, so we thought it would be a good idea, and we thought to include that in the brochure. I mean, it made sense. It described our team, and we thought they'd like to know that.
So now that you have your materials together, it's time to actually, contact the sponsor. So there's many different ways you can contact a sponsor, from kind of more of an informal approach to a more formal approach. So I guess the more informal approach would be just going up to the business and saying, hey, is your manager there? Can we speak to them? Can we kind of tell them what we're about? And hopefully we can get somewhere from there. But the more formal approach would be kind of sending them like a letter or an email, or kind of giving them more like a conversation, like through a call or something, so that you can, I guess, set up a future meeting time so you can get a formal presentation going. If they can't meet with you, it's not the end of the world. You're going to leave some information so that they can contact you and kind of, you can plan out in the future when you want to meet with them. You're going to also want to get contact information from them in case, if you give them faulty information and I don't know, for some unknown reason. In the end, the more companies you reach out to, the better. You're going to have a better chance of getting more sponsorships, but you don't want to go overboard. I mean, it's not a bad idea to get a lot of money, but once you have enough, you can take a break. So I guess you just want to use your presentation as kind of like a way not to just present your team, but also present first in their message. I mean, if you're really comfortable with first message, you can, almost sell the sponsorship to the company by just using that information. Because, through first you do a lot of wonderful things like outreach to the community, build robots, help other people, all that stuff. And just by that, you can, use that towards your benefit. And
also just adding on to that, I know you mentioned a line about don't going overboard with companies. You're going to want to stay organized, and if you try and do too much, it's going to really you're going to have all this data scrambled, all these phone numbers, all these things to contact. So make sure it's enough that you can manage reasonably. All right, so if you get in a situation where you're actually giving a presentation to someone, once again, you talked about there's informal and formal. I mean, a presentation could be walking into a small business in your local city and just asking to speak with the manager. You're still going to want to have all of your materials prepared, which, once again, you're going to talk about your team, talk about why you need the sponsorship and what's in it for them. I mean, that's really what they're going to be looking at first and foremost, is like, why would I just give a bunch of random teenagers my money for them to spend? I mean, first sells itself. It's actually a lot easier than you think. I mean, he said it before, some of the things that we're doing at first, maybe you don't even realize it sometimes. Like, you're in a workshop for 6 weeks, and, I mean, to you that's normal, to them that's outrageous. I mean, they weren't doing that when they were in high school, so they're more than impressed. And then just remember, eye contact, staying organized, clear and concise, and then just be yourself and tell your own team story. It's a very good story that you have to tell if you're part of first. An optional thing, we do it occasionally for the more formal presentations. That would be like you send them an email, call them, typically for bigger companies, and you actually show up at a bigger office space, maybe in a conference room. You can bring the robot. A lot of people like to see what we're actually doing, and it's really easy to just bring a robot, drive it around the room, and they'll be impressed. And any other unique element about your team, just go ahead and bring that in. And you're showing your own team off, so might as well.
So don't freak out if you did your presentation great, you thought you nailed it, but there hasn't been much action after it. It's all going to be fine. So if the executive or your sponsorship lead doesn't contact you after a couple of days, you're going to want to take your own initiative so that you show that you're committed to them as being a sponsor, and you also want to I guess kind of promote their message and ultimately get their money. But so you're going to want to send an email or call the executive to kind of remind them of what your message is, kind of refresh their memory so that it can be kind of pulled back to the front of their mind. And you're going to, if you didn't clarify something in the presentation, offer answers to any, questions, or, respond to any questions that they may ask after you send that initial email. And then if you need to, give them more information, like if they need to contact someone else on the team, or if they need, to use some other team resource, you're going to want to send that along to them. And I guess an important point is not to pester them, but to kind of get a balance between, letting them reply and think about it, and also not pestering them. You want to get a middle balance so that you're professional and you don't, overload them with, do you want to be our sponsor? You want to be our sponsor? You sure? You sure? You want to be a sponsor? Yeah, you don't want to do that.
All right, so I talked about it before, but you're really going to want to put a lot of emphasis into rewarding them. I mean, they did just give you their money. In some cases, it can be in the thousands of dollars. I mean, they're putting a lot forward to you, and it's your responsibility to really thank them in a special way. Put their logo everywhere you can put their logo. Turn around. I mean, example of a normal team shirt. I mean, it always has the logos on the back. They appear on the robots. They're mentioned with your team when you actually start playing a match at a regional. I mean, just put them on your website. Put a link on your website to their website, and just make sure that you're identifying yourself as being sponsored by them. You can give them gift baskets. Actually go to their company and maybe give a presentation to their employees. A lot of them will like to see the projects that you've made with your robot. So, I mean, that's a really good time to bring in a robot, give a presentation, and maybe bring a couple of extra team t-shirts for their executives and things like that. They really enjoy things like that as well. And just build a relationship. Keep them updated on your progress. We have a newsletter email that we send out to our sponsors, just kind of keeping them updated on where we are, where their money's going, things like that. And I already mentioned presenting to their employees. And just be sure you're representing them well. I mean, run a good team, and then they'll be able to identify themselves with you, and you can identify yourself with them.
So, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so sponsors don't necessarily just give you money. I mean, they can give you services, they can give you, materials, they can give you a whole bunch of different things, and you're going to, utilize those to your benefit. So, I mean, I guess, we have a sponsorship or two who give us mentors, and I mean, sometimes a sponsorship will say, hey, you can just come to our scrapyard and get some metal. Just go pick it up, go get it for free. So it's not necessarily money, but it's what the sponsorship gives you that the team can use is ultimately the goal of what you want to do with the sponsorship. I mean, you don't have to. The ultimate goal is to spend less money through the sponsorship than if you weren't to have it.
And then the other ways to raise money. I mean, not all of your money is going to come from corporate sponsorship. There's plenty of different ways to do it. Our team last year had a garage sale, made money off of that. You can sell those first LED light bulbs. You can go to usfirst.org. There's details of how to do that there. You can bag groceries for tips at certain grocery stores. Some teams are able to do this where you ask a local restaurant or a store, and for example, one night you can come in with a certain flyer that you pass out to all your friends at school, and you'd share in the profit just for the sales of that night. You can actually make quite a bit of money doing that. All right, so the do's and the don'ts.
Okay, so you're going to want to stay organized. You're going to keep all your information in kind of a good organized fashion. So if you need to, you can easily contact your sponsors, and you can easily, keep them updated with your current season and keep them updated with whatever you want to tell them. You're going to be professional and, of course, gracious. You're going to, show them that you have a set plan. You're going to, kind of keep standards, I guess, in kind of the way you give them information and the way you use their services. You're going to want to ask as many companies for sponsorship, because if you don't get one, at least you have other places to turn to. And then you're going to also want to use your website. Your website's a very powerful resource. Once we scrapped using a PowerPoint for a sponsorship, and we just went straight to our website, and we just kind of went through the website and told the team history, and sometimes it can be even better than the PowerPoint. I mean, it offers a lot more for the, or it could offer a lot more for the sponsorship to see and use, and plus it's a good way for them to reference back so they can, look at the different things you were showing.
All right, and then things to not do. Well, we already talked about pestering companies. You don't want to turn into just another junk mail thing for them. I mean, make sure that you're talking about yourself in a way that they don't forget you, but don't bombard them and scare them away. Don't lose information. It's the same thing as staying organized, but especially when it comes time to compiling all the stuff and you realize you misplaced a business card or you forgot to write someone's name down that you're going to call. I mean, it'll make a difference if you have it all nice, neat, and you know where everything is. Don't think that little work will be highly rewarded. This does take a lot of effort. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's not supposed to be that way either. If you want to get a lot of money out of this, you really need to put in the work, but you will be rewarded if you do put in enough work. And finally, just don't represent first poorly. I mean, you're going to be talking about them. Just be a good team, be gracious and professional, and you'll know exactly what you're doing. Then, I think we're going to open it up for questions now. I don't know what's on there.
Can I start?
Yeah, sure.
Can you, without naming the companies, can you talk about a corporate visit that went well and contrast that to a corporate visit that didn't go well?
Go ahead and tell one of them.
Sure. So in the corporate sponsorship that went well, we kind of walked in with a plan. We kind of had a set method to go through. We answered all their questions thoroughly. We had a working robot. That was always good. We did everything professionally, and we answered all the questions. And they left the presentation feeling satisfied that it would be a good idea to give us money. And we want to leave that kind of impression on them about FIRST and our robotics team, that they can support us and that we can also support them.
Thinking about an example that went poorly, we've had one where I guess we were really, kind of, I don't know if stubborn is the right word, but we definitely had a certain system in mind of how it was going to go, and we were really inflexible. I guess that would be a better word, inflexible. We showed up, and we ended up presenting in a room that we didn't really know what was going on. There was a lot of traffic. We didn't know who we were talking to and things like that. We ended up running a PowerPoint off of a small computer. We thought we were going to be using a projector. The robot itself actually malfunctioned. We hadn't checked it as thoroughly as we should have in the workshop. So it just kind of, everything started crashing down really quickly. I guess the lesson from that is just make sure you're really prepared and really organized, but also kind of ready for any sort of curveball they throw at you. You can end up in a kind of strange situation, so just be ready to change what you're doing at the last minute. Any questions up there?
I do have a question online. How many members do you have on a particular presentation visit? Do you bring a laptop, projector, or just a folder?
I guess it really depends on who you're dealing with. The best thing to do is just kind of look at the level of the company you're talking to. I mean, you don't need to send your entire team into like a grocery store, for example. If it's like a bigger company, for example, like a big, like a corporate headquarters, for example, you might want to send maybe 5 to 6 at the very most. Anything more than that, and there's just going to be people there that aren't talking. That's another thing too, is just make sure that everybody you send has a purpose. Everything should be really intentional. They should all be dressed the way that you want them to be dressed. For example, if you have a team uniform and everyone's supposed to wear that, don't be the team where there's like one kid in a team uniform, one kid in a basketball jersey because he just came from practice, or things like that. I mean, you really want to be intentional. I would recommend bringing a laptop pretty much anywhere you go. For example, that example that I was giving that was kind of like a bad presentation, one that didn't go so well. We were still able to kind of shoulder a computer, and we showed our PowerPoint and pulled up a couple videos from the Blue Alliance. Bring a folder, definitely. If you have business cards, a lot of teams have them, and they're very useful because that's going to be the first thing that someone reaches for. So they'll stick it in their wallet, and they see that when they get home. The folder, the laptop, a projector. If you're going to be in a situation where you need a projector, most likely they'll have one. If you're not in that situation, then you can probably just run it off of a laptop anyway. Typically, the size of the groups that you're presenting to is only about 5 or 6 at the most. It's very rare that you're going to be presenting to more people than that. So just kind of keep that in mind, and then keep it kind of small scale, but still enough that you can present all the information that you need.
In taking care of your customers, how many times a year do you think you contact?
Well, the newsletter goes out at least once a week during the build season. You just basically anytime that there's something big, like for example, if you go and do some community outreach, you might want to let them know. Just enough to keep them updated, but not enough to just have it be that email that they get every day that they're just deleting. So kind of finding a balance there. A lot of teams, our team took up a Twitter account. Some of our sponsors actually follow us, and it's really easy to just post something. Like we posted tonight, we're getting ready to go on and do a sponsorship presentation, and they were able to see that if they wanted. So email is good, just kind of maybe once a week during build, and then after that, maybe once a month, something like that.
One other question online. When do you fundraise? Spring, fall, summer, all of the above?
Right. Well, you can start basically at any time. It's kind of a full year thing. The one thing to keep in mind is that the deadline to actually register a sponsor with your team, meaning when you actually go to a regional event, their name will be read with your team when you enter the field. That deadline is always mid-December, so keep that in mind. We start basically right after all the regionals are over, kind of a summer thing. It's easier to do in the summer because there's no build going on, and you can pull people off the build team to go do this. But yeah, it's kind of a summer, fall thing. I mean, it's pretty hard to find time to do that during the build season or during regionals. I mean, it can be done, and it's after the registration time, so it's not, as useful, but I mean, if you need the money, then you can still do it at any time. Is there anything more?
One more might be coming up.
All right.
Please stay. Or not. All right.
You want one? Okay. This is Mark Lawrence again from the Planning Committee. Many of you don't know, I also sit on the Executive Advisory Board for First of Minnesota. And one of the reasons why we're doing this presentation tonight is because what you don't know is that we've now grown to 154 teams in the state. That's the third largest amount in the country. And what that's doing is it's putting extreme pressure on our high-level funders. So just to give you an idea, at funding teams at 150 teams at $5,000 a team, you can do the math. That's $750,000 of sponsorship money. In addition, we're running 3 regionals, and those are also expensive. So we're stretching the limits of our existing funders. So we need to now start generating money at a local level and start taking over some of the burden for entry fees into the competitions and for the other ancillary expenses that you have. So we're going to keep pushing this. You'll hear a lot about it this year, and we want to make sure that all the teams start working their way towards self-sufficiency. We're not going to cut anybody off, but we do have things that sunset. You know, the J.C. Penney grants from last year were all decreased. The NASA grants only run a couple years, and we're going to run into that as time goes on. So, you know, the burden is going to be more on the teams for raising funds, and we're coming up with ways to help you do that, and you'll hear more about that as the year goes on. So just keep that in mind. We're going to take about a 2-3 minute break. We're going to get our next presenter up, who's remote, and then we'll start our strategy session. Thanks.